Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 5, chapter number 1, entitled The Activities of Maharaja Priyavrata. Text number 5. Shri Shuka Uvacha Bādhamuktam Bhagavata Uttama Shlokasya Srimad Charanarvindamakrandarasa Aveshita Chetaso Bhagavata Paramahamsa Daita Katham Kinchidantaraya Vihatam Swam Shivatamam Padavim na prayena hinvanti. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, "What you have said is correct. The glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised in eloquent transcendental verses by such exalted personalities as Brahma, are very pleasing to great devotees and liberated persons. One who is attached to the nectarian honey of the Lord's lotus feet and whose mind is always absorbed in His glories may sometimes be checked by some impediment, but he still never gives up the exalted position he has acquired." Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sri Shukadeva Goswami accepted both of the king's propositions that a person who is advanced in Krishna consciousness cannot embrace materialistic life again, and that one who has embraced materialistic life cannot take up Krishna consciousness at any stage of his existence. Although accepting both these statements, Shukadeva Goswami qualified them by saying that a person who has once absorbed his mind in the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead may sometimes be influenced by impediments, but he still does not give up his exalted devotional position. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura, there are two kinds of impediments to devotional service. The first is an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. This is called Vaishnava Aparad. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu warned his devotees not to commit Vaishnava Aparad, which he described as the mad elephant offense. When a mad elephant enters a beautiful garden, it destroys everything, leaving a barren field. Similarly, the power of Vaishnava Aparad is so great that even an advanced devotee becomes almost devoid of his spiritual assets if he commits it. Since Krishna consciousness is eternal, it cannot be destroyed altogether, but advancement may be checked for the time being. Thus, Vaishnava Aparad is one kind of impediment to devotional service. Sometimes, however, the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee desires to impede one's devotional service. For example, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were formerly Jaya and Vijaya, the gatekeepers in Vaikunta, but by the desire of the Lord, they became his enemies for 3 lives. Thus, the desire of the Lord is another kind of impediment. But in both cases, the pure devotee, once advanced in Krishna consciousness, cannot be lost. Following the orders of his superiors, Swayambhuva and Lord Brahma, Priyavrata accepted family life, but this did not mean he lost his position in devotional service. Krishna consciousness is perfect and eternal, and therefore it cannot be lost under any circumstances. Because the material world is full of obstructions to advancement in Krishna consciousness, there may appear to be many impediments, yet Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, declares in Bhagavad Gita 9:31, Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhaktah pranashyati. Once one has taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, he cannot be lost. In this verse, the word Shivatamam is very significant. Shivatamam means the most auspicious. The devotional path is so auspicious that a devotee cannot be lost under any circumstances. This is described in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita by the Lord Himself. Partha naiveha namutra vinashastasya vidyate. My dear Arjuna, for a devotee there is no question of being lost either in this life or in the next. In Bhagavad Gita 6:43, the Lord clearly explains how this is so. Tatratam buddhi samyogam labate paurvadehikam Yadate cha tato bhuyaha samsiddhau kuru nandana. By the order of the Lord, a perfect devotee sometimes comes to this material world like an ordinary human being. Because of his previous practice, Such a perfect devotee naturally becomes attached to devotional service, apparently without cause. Despite all kinds of impediments due to surrounding circumstances, he automatically perseveres in devotional service and gradually advances until he once again becomes perfect. Bilomangal Thakura had been an advanced devotee in his previous life, but in his next life he became greatly fallen and was attached to a prostitute. Suddenly, however, his entire behavior was changed by the words of the very prostitute who had so much attracted him, and he became a great devotee. In the lives of exalted devotees, there are many such instances, proving that once one has taken to the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, he cannot be lost. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhaktaf pranashyati. The fact is, however, that one becomes a devotee when he is completely freed from all reactions to sinful life. As Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita 7:28, Esham tvantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante man dridhavrataha. Persons who have acted piously and in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and who are freed from the duality of illusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. On the other hand, as Prahlad Maharaj said, Matirna Krishne Parataswatova Mitobhipadyeta Grihavratanam. A person who is too attached to materialistic family life, home, family, wife, children, and so on, cannot develop Krishna consciousness. These apparent contradictions are resolved in the life of a devotee by the grace of the Supreme Lord, and therefore a devotee is never bereft of his position on the path of liberation, which is described in this verse as Shivatamam Padavim. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada.
So in this chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Activities of Maharaj Priyavrata, we just saw Parikshit Maharaj asking different questions about Priyavrata's life, how he was a great devotee, renounced from all material activities. But then he took up he became a grihastha, became a householder, had 2 wives, had many children, and apparently became attached to family members. And he was a ruler, he was a king, dealing with all the complications of a king's life. How did this happen? Because if somebody is attached to family life and such materialistic things, he cannot develop Krishna consciousness. And if one has become advanced in Krishna consciousness, he will not become attached to material things. So this looks like Priyavrata's life seems to be a contradiction. So that was the question that Parikshit Maharaj has raised. And this entire chapter is going to resolve this apparent contradiction. And today's verse, Shukadev Goswami has begun. He's saying, Bada Muktam. Yes, what you have said is correct. Uktam. What you have said, Parikshit, just now, Badham. It is true. And then Shukadev Goswami is further elaborating. Bhagavata Uttama Shlokasya Srimad Charanaravinda Makaranda Rasa Aveshita Chetasaha Bhagavata Paramahamsa Daita Katham. It is all describing the position of a devotee. Bhagavata Uttama Shlokasya, the Lord, Bhagavan, the Lord, Uttama Shlokasya, who is glorified by transcendental and eloquent prayers. Srimad Charanaravinda, his lotus feet. Makaranda, the honey or the sweet nectar. Rasa, that is the sweet nectar, rasa. Aveshita chetasaha, one's whose heart is aveshita, absorbed in remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, which is Makaranda rasa. Bhagavata Paramahamsa, and such devotees who are Paramahamsas, they are liberated. Daita Katham, and the Lord's activities, Katham, descriptions, are Daita, very, very pleasing to them. So they are attached to the lotus feet of the Lord. They are absorbed in hearing the glorification, hearing the glories of the Lord. Such devotees, kinchit, sometimes. What happens to him? Antaraya vihatam. Sometimes they may be checked by some impediments. Antaraya vihatam. They may be checked by antaraya, impediments, some obstacles. However, swam shivatamam padavim. But that padavim, that position, shivatamam padavim, that most auspicious position they have attained, their own position, swam shivatamam padavim, na prayena hinvanti, na hinvanti. They never lose that position. They never give up that position. Prayena, more or less in that sense. Almost. Na prayena hinvanti. Shri Shukadev Goswami said, what you have said is correct. Badhamuktam. The glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised in eloquent transcendental verses. Bhagavata Uttama Shlokasya Srimad Charanaravinda. By such eloquent transcendental verses, by such exalted personalities as Brahma, are very pleasing to great devotees. Dayita. And liberated persons, Paramahamsa, great devotees and liberated person, is very pleasing. One who is attached to the nectarian honey, Makaranda Rasa, of the Lord's lotus feet, Srimad Charanaravinda, and whose mind, Chetasa, is always absorbed, Aveshita, in his glories, Katham, may sometimes kinchit be checked by some impediments. Vihatam, antaraya vihatam. But he still never gives up. Na hinvanti, the exalted position he has acquired. Shivatamam padavim na hinvanti. This is the message of Shukadev Goswami, and Srila Prabhupada has explained some very interesting things. So, here the expression used, Prabhupada has pointed out in the purport, Shivatamam Padavim. Shiva means auspicious. And Shivatamam means just like Guhyam, Guhyatara, Guhyatamam. It is superlative. In the same way, Shivatamam means most auspicious. So, the living entity may come across, may have some things which are auspicious. Living entities may come across something more auspicious. And living entities may come across something most auspicious. And devotional service to Krishna, this position, Aveshita, Makaranda Rasa Aveshita Chetasaha, is the most auspicious position of a devotee. And that position is never lost, even if a devotee has to encounter certain impediments. And then Prabhupada has quoted in the purport Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's explanation. Yes, this antaraya vihatam, there can be two kinds of impediments. One impediment, the Lord, the first impediment is Vaishnava aparadh. If someone commits an Vaishnava aparadh, that's an impediment. But Prabhupada has clarified, even if it is an impediment, one may lose his devotional service, but one will not lose it completely, because devotional service is eternal. Since Krishna consciousness is eternal, it cannot be destroyed altogether, but advancement may be checked for the time being, till the devotee corrects his Vaishnava aparadh, sets it right, it may be checked. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's warning is that one has to be very careful about Vaishnava aparadh. So that's one kind of impediment. Then there is another kind of impediment. The other kind is Lord or his devotees' own wishes. Sometimes, however, the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee desires to impede one's devotional service for some very extraordinary reasons. Devotee, Lord himself wants to impede, Lord's devotee wants to impede. That must be under some very extraordinary circumstance. What was the example? Prabhupada has quoted Jaya and Vijaya. They were the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha. They were serving the Lord personally. They had great personal association of the Lord. But then they were sent to take birth 3 lives and become asuras. So that is another interesting pastime of the Lord. And why did that happen? Why did Lord impede their devotional service? Why did the Lord desire like that? And Jaya and Vijaya go there. And the whole arrangement happened. The 4 Chatush Kumaras came and they were not let in. And we read about that in the previous canto, 3rd canto. And they cursed Jaya and Vijaya. And why did all this happen? That is because the Lord wanted to experience fighting with his devotees. And fighting cannot happen in the Vaikuntha. Everybody is glorifying the Lord. Everyone is a natural devotee. Actually, Prabhupada explains in those purports, all of this is to highlight the personal feature of the Absolute Truth. That is the meaning of a personality. The personality means he has desires to enjoy in different ways. Just like we are all personalities and we have varieties of desire. Actually, a conscious person, a very primary characteristic of a conscious personality is having desires for enjoyment. That's why ultimately Kama Deva means Krishna. Because Kama, desire to enjoy, ultimately belongs to the Lord. He is the ultimate Kama Deva. So he is the Supreme Personality, means he has desires to enjoy. And enjoyment is not one-sided. It is variegated. It is multi-dimensional. And so, Lord, sometimes everyone is praising me. Okay, somebody should also fight with me. That's another nice thing. So the Lord may decide, okay, my dear 2 devotees, I will impede your devotional service here. You can do another kind of devotional service by going there and taking birth as asuras, and I'll come and fight. And you should be strong. You should give me a tough fight. Otherwise, what is the use? I come and fight and then suddenly you surrender. It doesn't please me. So I want you to become powerful demons. Shake the whole universe. Then I will come. Then we will have fight. You see how this is? This is actually, Bhagavatam is establishing the personality. The Absolute Truth is a personality. And what is the meaning of personality? Personality means somebody who has got desires and he pursues those desires for enjoyment, and the pursuit of the desire for enjoyment constitutes activities. That is actually the Lord and his associates. That's actually the truth. What happens is, our view of the world and the creation, it is just like the prisoner's view in a prison in our world. The prisoner is in the prison. He is used to things in the prison, big walls. He can't, is conditioned. He cannot escape. He cannot relate with the family members. It's all restricted. He wants to enjoy. It's all restricted. So this is actually the perspective of a prisoner. In the same way, our perspective is actually we see from the material world. Actually, the truth is, we all know, we all are outside the prison in this world. So we know that how the world is full of variegatedness, so many activities. There are parks, there are malls, there are restaurants, so many ways to enjoy. By the way, there is one small portion in our city, in every city, called the prison. In the same way, the reality is, the greater reality is, the Lord and his associates and the wonderful pastimes that happen in the spiritual domain. By the way, there is one part of the creation called the material world where all the rebellious living entities are put there. So this is actually the reality, but because we are in the material world, we are trying to understand the spiritual reality from the material domain. It's just like the prisoners looking at, oh, there is something called a free world, is it? Oh, there is some there are parks there, there is all such beautiful thing. Oh, okay, maybe there. So that's the view of an inmate of a prison. Actually, that's the way we look at when we hear about the spiritual world. But the greater reality and the dominant reality is the spiritual world. The material world is a small portion. So these are the reasons why certain times the Lord is a personality and he has got desires and he wants to pursue those desires for his pleasure, and his own devotees take up different roles to give him different varieties of pleasure. And that is another example. So this is an example Prabhupada has quoted of Jaya and Vijaya, where their devotional service was in one sense impeded, but actually in another sense it was meant for another kind of a pleasure of the Lord. So sometimes we may see this kind of an impediment. Another one is Priyavrata himself. Priyavrata was not, his impediment came not from the Lord, but from his devotee. Swayambhuva Manu and Brahma, both great personalities, great devotees, they went and told Priyavrata, who was in his, like it is described here, Makaranda Rasa Aveshita Chetasaha, he was absorbed in transcendental mellows of the Lord. But they went and told him, no, now you come, become a king, become a householder, have queens, have children, all of that. So he may do that. But Priyavrata, when he is doing that, he never lost his Shivatamam Padavim na prayena hinvanti. They never lose their spiritual position. That is to be appreciated and understood, because Krishna consciousness is perfect and it is eternal and it cannot be lost under any circumstance. So here, important point is, following the orders of his superiors, Swayambhu and Lord Brahma, Priyavrata accepted family life, but this did not mean he lost his position in devotional service. This is the point that this chapter is going to point out. Bhakti is such that if one is in different kinds of roles, if one is in different kinds of situations, but those roles and situations are under the order of the superiors, then one will not lose his devotional position. This is the crux of the matter. Shivatamam padavim na prayena hinvanti. One will not lose his devotional position if one is under the order of superiors, one is acting in this way. And this principle and many other principles of the Bhagavatam, they were actually demonstrated in the life of Srila Prabhupada. I heard somewhere one devotee describing, actually Prabhupada's life is so exemplary. It's not unlikely Vyasadeva will include Prabhupada's life in some part of the Bhagavatam which he composes in some other part of the universe. Because lives of devotees demonstrate spiritual principles. And Prabhupada's life is a great demonstration of one of the important principles, which is to follow the orders of the superior. Prabhupada's life was fully a manifestation of the following the order of his spiritual master. There was once a lecture Prabhupada gave in somewhere in Canada. I'll read some portions of that. Prabhupada is speaking in Montreal, 1969. In this old age, I have come to your country. Why? Because we are trying to follow the footprints of Lord Chaitanya's. Therefore we have come. Otherwise, in old age, who goes out of home? You see, like we sometimes hear about our some spiritual gurus and Swamis, spiritual godmen in our country. They go open centers around the world and they have temples, they have followers. Why do they go? Mostly it is that, I want to expand my footprint by just India. I have a global footprint. Because, all these are all ideas from the world of business, and where they want to expand businesses around the world. Such ideas are there. Or maybe there are rich disciples there. I can get rich disciples and so I can become very prosperous. Whereas when Srila Prabhupada was going, what was his motivation? What was actually driving him? It was not some kind of a global footprint and rich disciple. None of those things. Because my spiritual master ordered, I've come. I've gone to different parts of the world. In another letter, Prabhupada wrote, I have come to your country to carry out the wishes of my spiritual master, and you are kindly cooperating with me. So, Prabhupada was going to different places, and we have Krishna consciousness, our attempts to expand Krishna consciousness to different parts of the world. It is because it was the wish of our predecessor acharyas. In another letter that Prabhupada wrote to Brahmananda, very, very interesting letter, we can see the humility of Srila Prabhupada. Personally, I am non-entity. Prabhupada is saying, I am nothing. Personally, I am non-entity. I have come here on the order of my spiritual master and he has kindly sent you all boys to assist me. So whatever is being done, there is no credit for me, but all the credit goes to my spiritual master, because he has arranged everything, and I am simply to abide by his order. Just see this, the mood of Srila Prabhupada. I am simply to abide by his order. So this is actually the life of Srila Prabhupada. All his struggles were to follow the order of his superior. And that is the life, that should be the life of a devotee. A devotee is not independent. What we do, how we do, what we like to do, all those things we set aside. We do what our superiors wanted us to do. This is the kind of a consciousness that a devotee, we see how Srila Prabhupada is demonstrating that. Actually, the words in the Upanishad, Yasya deve para bhaktir yata deve tatha gurau, or Acharya mam vijaniyan. These are statements in the Vedic literatures. Yasya deve para bhaktir yata deve tatha gurau. As you must have para bhakti to Lord, you must have similar para bhakti to your guru. This is the instruction of the Upanishad. And if you do that, what happens? Tasyaita katita hyartha prakashante mahatmanaha. Only to such people, only to such living, such mahatmas who are in that consciousness, the true imports of the Vedic literatures are prakashante, are revealed. So otherwise we will not understand the Vedic literatures. We will not understand the true import of the Vedic literatures. We will miss that. Tasyeya katita hyartaha prakashante mahatmanaha. And instructions like Acharya mam vijaniyan. You should regard the Acharya as good as me. Mam vijaniyan. Krishna is saying this in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. Acharya mam vijaniyan. You must regard the Acharya like me. And we see how these are explained by our acharyas. Sakshad haritvena samasta shastraihi uktastata bhavyata eva sadbihi. So the spiritual master should be regarded as good as Hari. Sakshad haritvena samasta shastraihi uktastata bhavyata. Should be bhavyata, should be considered. In the sense, not that the Guru is God. That's a wrong understanding. Guru is not God. The Guru is to be regarded as good as God. Acharya, mam vijaniyan, should be regarded like me, because kintu prabhorya priyayeva tasya. Because the spiritual master is dear to the Lord. Prabhu Priyaha. He is Prabhu Priya. He is dear to the Lord. And so he knows the heart of the Lord. And he is executing the mission of the Lord. And his words are the Lord's words. His wishes are the Lord's wishes. Hence, for those of us who are here in the material world, like in the prison, we are cut off from, the prisoners are cut off from the free world. In the same way, we are cut off from the spiritual world. We cannot get there in our present situation, in our present consciousness. We don't know about that spiritual world. Sometimes an important officer of the government comes to the prison And then he tells them, what is the world outside like? Why are you all suffering here? He brings information about the free world. Such a person is very special, isn't it? And he tells them, if you do these things, you can come there. You don't have to be suffering like this here. You come there, there is real enjoyment, there is real relationships are there. Relationships are not excluded. In the material world, relationships are temporary and it will not always give us happiness. In the spiritual world, there is a world of relationships between the devotees and the Lord and various other devotees. Once Prabhupada was asked, what will happen to all of us when we go? Prabhupada said, in the spiritual world, there will be another ISKCON. And all of us will associate there. So we will be with Prabhupada. So this is the reality that Srila Prabhupada was sharing. See how when we are in this material world, we don't know what it is. And so an Acharya comes. And his words have to be regarded very, very specially. And Prabhupada's own life is a demonstration of how he regarded his spiritual master's words so seriously. Another expression Prabhupada used, we should take the words of the spiritual master as one's life and soul. And Prabhupada's life is actually a demonstration of these things. There was another occasion. Actually, Prabhupada is such an extraordinary Acharya. He has given so many instructions. And if we take those instructions seriously, our lives will become perfect. Prabhupada said, if you act according to my wishes, you will get connected with Krishna. If we act according to the wishes of a pure devotee, of a spiritual master, we will get connected to Krishna. If we don't act according to the spiritual master's instructions, there's no guarantee we'll be disconnected from Krishna. That is why Narottam Das Thakur, one of the great devotees in our Sampradaya, he said, Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Te Koriya Aikya. The instructions of the spiritual master, we should internalize it and should become part of us. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Te Koriya Aikya. See the kind of expressions the acharyas have expressed to convey how important it is to follow the orders of the spiritual master, orders of the superior. And when we do that, we are connected to Krishna. Shiva tamam padavim nahinvanti. We will never lose our spiritual position if we are connected through the orders of the spiritual master, regardless of what activities, what position, what situations we go through in this material world. The material world will have obstacles, will have difficulties, all kinds of situations are there. And to explain that, Prabhupada is giving the example of Bilva Mangal Thakur, who was a very advanced devotee, but somehow in his next life, he became very, very fallen. And then he was attached to the prostitute. And then that very prostitute spoke certain words very strongly that struck him. And he was a transformed person. In fact, Prabhupada recalls another in connection with Bilva Mangal Thakur. I'll read this small paragraph. This was a class Prabhupada gave in Gorakhpur in 1971. My Guru Maharaj used to say like that, finish this business in this life. Don't delay for the next life. You see, the kind of an intensity, the kind of a seriousness that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur brought in his instructions, carried down by Srila Prabhupada. Actually, this is the mood of the Bhagavata. This is the mood of the Vedic literatures. Don't take it in a cool, relaxed manner. Okay, if it's possible, let me make some spiritual advance. If it doesn't happen, it's okay. Life is, No. Tivrena bhakti yogena. A certain kind of a tivra. Tivra means intense. It is expected. The Bhagavatam's teachings are to bring that tivra. So that's why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is saying, finish this business. This business means, Prabhupada explained in an earlier part of this lecture, this business of lording over material nature. Like we are all interested to do, lord over material nature and enjoy different things, material pleasures. Finish this business, lording business in this life. Don't delay for the next life. He was telling also, don't give me trouble again to come to deliver you. Don't give me trouble again to come here to deliver you. That is the responsibility of the spiritual master. Spiritual master's responsibility is to take the disciple to Krishna until he is able to help him. That is the verdict of the Shastras. Just like Bilva Mangal Thakur, his spiritual master delivered him, taking the shape of a prostitute. Just see. So, this is the position of the spiritual master. It is his responsibility to take. And see the way Prabhupada is saying, until he is able to help him. And to help him, if he has become so fallen, hunting prostitutes, come as a prostitute and help him. These are very, very transcendental dynamics that happens. How the Lord, his devotees' arrangement to uplift a living entity, take him back to the spiritual world. So these are some very extraordinary things. More interesting topics are there. We will cover them as we go on in this chapter of the Bhagavatam. We'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.